So I just want to start off at the top here by saying two things. First of all, I wouldn't listen to this one at full volume. I get pretty shouty at some points and throw throw some profanities in there. So I'm sorry about that, but I was getting into a mode, and that's the first thing. Second thing is that I understand if anyone did not like this, if anyone was turned off by me posting something like this, I get it. This is not going to be my usual content from here on out. I know that I didn't post anything for basically 4 or 5 months, and now I'm posting this. I wouldn't expect a lot of this in the future. Um, it's it's just something that I felt I felt like I had to write something or record something, and this is much more easily recordable. And It's just some stuff that I've desperately needed to get off of my chest and put out there. Um, and so I actually was working on a video about myths and misconceptions about D-Day. Unfortunately, I didn't have a computer for most of May, and so I did some research and put some work into that, and all I had was my iPad tablet, and that's not very conducive to researching and recording. I'll probably still release that here at some point in the future. Um, it just that we're well past the anniversary of the fifth. Oh wow, the 80th rather. Going back 30 years. The 80th, and so it's not going to have the same punch, but I guess it's better than waiting until the 81st, because that doesn't really matter either. So I'll probably put that out here at some point. That's going to continue to be my usual content. I'm not going to do political rants or anything else like that as a mainstay from here on out, at least not on this channel. Um, but that's what's up. So I actually also wanted to put something additional on here, because I spend a lot of time banging on the Democrats, and we're here, for another piece of historical content. There are two pieces of historical content in this video, but I had just noticed that it's the 90th anniversary of the Night of the Long Knives, and as I urge people at the end, I nail on Democrats, and I urge people at the end of this to try to understand each other. If you're one of those people who's being won over by conservative populism, right-wing populism, it serves to remember that the folks who signed on with right-wing populism in Germany, and who genuinely believed that the Nazis were going to change the status quo, and that things were going to be different, and Hitler was going to take on the industrialists, well, they all got purged in the end, because that was never the plan. So just please remember, you have so much more in common with the queer barista who works down the street than you do with oil magnates, or people who are working in conservative media. You have a lot more in common. So please try to find that common ground. I know it's not always easy, because sometimes, whether you're on the left or on the right, it can be difficult with all that animosity that's been built up over the years to try to make that approach. But please do, because folks who are hurting right now, who have lived under these bad economic conditions for a long time, all have a lot more in common with each other. So thank you, everybody. Take care. So I think this past week was very revealing. For context, I am recording this after the first presidential debate between Biden and Trump. And just in general, I haven't been recording my thoughts either in writing or in audio. I haven't been recording my thoughts on politics a lot lately because I just I don't see much point in engaging with the electoral process anymore. We, meaning me and a lot of other people, put so much energy and time and effort for years, 5 years in my case, even longer in a lot of other people's, in trying to build some sort of alternative to the status quo. That wasn't the far right wing. And just in the last couple of years, I've seen it come to nothing. The candidates that I deal with personally, or I dealt with personally, I should say, a lot of them just went straight into the arms of big business and property developers and tech companies and all of those people. The seductive song of faux progressivism, brought to you by Apple, and it's been very disheartening to see that. But even with that, I feel like this has been very educational this week. I'm a huge fan of Armando Iannucci's work. The Thick of It, The Loop, The Death of Stalin, Veep. Although I feel like Veep is kind of the weakest of Iannucci's political work. Just because it's very Americanized, and when you're writing comedies for Americans, you kind of have to take a lot of the edge off that you don't have to take off in British humor. Don't get me wrong, British mass psychology is its own psychosis, but Americans you kind of have to pitch it as though you're pitching it to a fifth grader. Because you have to sort of maintain that veneer of distance and optimism that you don't have to do in British comedy. But anyway, that's a tangent within a tangent. I like Iannucci's work because he seems to be one of the few people who really gets modern politics and gets all the awfulness around it and actually really understands and is able to cut to the bone of that stuff. But anyway, in The Loop, which is the HBO collaboration before Veep, at the very end, after they have made this political case, building up all of this momentum to go into what is essentially a proxy for the Iraq War. They've lied, they've gaslighted, they have done everything it takes to drive their nations towards war in order to help out their boss's political fortunes. There's a moment when the main characters, Malcolm and Jamie, and they pause and sort of absorb the actual horror of what they have done. Before it was all a game, and now suddenly it's real, and they have to sit in the horror of that. And I just felt immediately after the debate that a lot of Democrat, very establishment Democratic commentators had that moment. They had to actually sit there and marinate in the horror of what they have done. This is what all the gaslighting, this is what all of the demonizing any voice within the Democratic Party that said you guys are screwing it up. That we need something new, something different, something that is more based in and the needs of the people. It's just I'm kind of stealing this take from Vosh a little bit, but I think he framed it very well. It's the Democrats have become so allergic to populism that the idea that elections and democracy is about appealing to the populace, they hate that. They hate it. They see the people as this inconvenience that they need to get over, so that way they can go to the fundraisers and continue their life journey. That we're all supposed to be rooting for their personal story. They don't really seem to care about actually doing anything that might help people out. The people are just there to be loathed, and yeah. So I kind of stole that take a little bit, but I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it just seems like the horror of all of that kind of hit, MSNBC and CNN and Pod Save America and all those guys at one time, but we've seen now it's teetering back the other way. The damage control is in, and obviously I didn't say anything recorded for audio, but I wrote back a couple of replies and comments to some friends that I think that they were overestimating, or rather underestimating, the Democrats' capability for self-satisfaction, for their drift back towards the status quo, and conformity of the in-group mindset within the Democratic Party, and just their tendency towards complacency. I spent a lot of time around people who always were sort of affluent middle-class Democrats, and then people who drifted towards that after we got them elected as leftists who were going to change things, and complacency is just rife among them, and we're seeing that. We're seeing the Democratic establishment, the DNC establishment, is just doing everything that they can to attack anybody who said anything negative about them in the last week. They will not accept. They will not accept what they've done, and a lot of the folks who in the last years have been Blue no matter who, what about Orange Man, you can't say anything bad about the Democrats, yada yada yada, because you're facilitating the right wing. January 6th is the only issue, as though people haven't more than made up their minds on that and absorbed it and gone past it by now. It's like when the Republicans in 2008 were still running on 9/11. It's like that was years ago, bro, and people care about what their lives are like now. Not continually evoking this thing that, for a lot of them, this was the greatest tragedy in their lives. And I'm not January 6th was bad. Don't get me wrong. It's the peak of a tiny iceberg of nascent fascism that's building in this country. But the reason that this attitude is building is because the worst thing that's happened in the lives of most Americans is what's happening every day. The factory shutting down, all their kids having to move away, not being able to afford rent, not being able to find a good job. This has been going on for 25, 30 years, if not longer, in a lot of places. And y'all seem to not have noticed, which is just amazing. Again, because the people who have a voice in the Democratic Party these days are the people who have benefited the most from the way that things are, and the people who are the most satisfied with the way things are, and think that everything bad with America started in 2016. Instead of realizing that we've been on a downward trajectory for quite a long time for most people in this country. On top of that, you have the Supreme Court rulings, and again, January 6th got top billing, and while that's not great, because it's beer hall pooch stuff where you can be. It doesn't matter how much you want to murder people and overthrow the government. If you're right wing, that's fine. If you're left wing, that's the only time that it's bad. Of course, the Democrats also wail on left wingers who dare speak out against the way that things are, while not realizing that directly comparing humanitarian people who just want to see the bombing stop, or just want healthcare or whatever, directly comparing them to people who want to lynch people in the streets. Apparently it doesn't register that is a bad comparison for a lot of these people. But now, I mean, the Supreme Court said that much as the courts in Germany in the 1920s and 30s have said that if you're on the right, you can't go too far. That's bad. Don't get me wrong. Again, though, people have had a very long time to absorb that. And the two things that got less coverage are the two things that the end of Chevron deference, which is for those of you who aren't so familiar with it, and I don't blame you. Chevron deference is based off of a ruling from the 1980s that basically just confirmed a precedent, which was that the courts are obliged to, the courts and therefore of course the people, the populace, in any area where the law is unclear on a regulation, are obliged to follow the opinions of the regulatory agencies. And don't get me wrong, I don't really like that either. I don't like the fact that some deep state bureaucrat who's probably part of a revolving door anyway, from the corporate world to the government, that they get to write so many important rules and regulations that we follow. But it's better than having just right-wing judges decide how to follow any part of the law. That's where we're at now. That's what the ruling basically said. And so much of the basic laws, in terms of the environment, in terms of consumer protection, in terms of workers' protection, so much of that, in terms of civil rights, which is the area that I work in, so much of that is decided based upon what is in federal guidance from from my case, for where I work, the EEOC, HUD, the EPA, the Department of Labor, and now that's all just going to be decided by right-wing judges whenever those cases come up. It is not unreasonable for people to assume that these things were part of some sort of legislation that was actually passed at some point, as opposed to assuming that these things are just down to the whims of some regulatory body. But here's the thing: is that not unlike with Roe v. Wade, which we're going to get back to, the Democrats who claimed that they wanted workers' protections and wanted environmental protections, over the years they would rather have punted this to somebody else and have had the issue to run off of than they would actually have the fight in Congress and with the president, and risk pissing off donors, or having to actually stand up for something. Democrats hate having to stand up for something. Our function in this process for the Democrats is only to look up to them. They don't need to fight for us. But the fact that has been the case, and we've been running like that for a very long time now, means that we've lost it all. As I said, getting back to Roe v. Wade and Dobbs and abortion, I find it interesting that all of the Supreme Court rulings were right-wing and very politicized. The one thing that they decided not to take on, of course, was the abortion pill. And, you know, they don't want to do that before the election. I mean, that's the reason that they did that. That's the whole rationale behind it, because they know now how dependent the Democratic Party's voting base is on affluent wine moms who their only issue is, you know, like abortion and being a girl boss. They could care less about other people. And, you know, that gets us then to the Grants Pass ruling, which basically has made it so that any municipality, state government entity, whatever, can basically make it illegal to be homeless, which is a level of unhumanitarian isn't enough. It's anti-humanitarian. That is, I mean, like, it's not a surprise, but it's still shocking in its own way, if that makes sense. And of course, the Supreme Court can rule that way because they know that a lot of the people who are currently going to decide the election, who have been voting Democrat for the last 8 years, and who Democrats have pitched their entire message to, don't care about the homeless. You know, this new constituency of the Democratic Party that determines the entire policy outlook of the Democratic Party is fundamentally anti-humanitarian. And so they don't care about the homeless. They want to see them gone as, you know, they don't want to solve homelessness. They want to eliminate the homeless. You know, it's not about eliminating homelessness. They just don't want to see them around, and they don't care what happens to folks who've fallen off the ladder. But, you know, that's the people that the Democrats are so desperate to get. And, you know, the Republicans want to try to win back, and so they can make a ruling like that, and it's not going to make a hill of beans in the election results. They know that, but they can't touch the other stuff. You know, they don't want to, at least not until the next election comes around. You know, not until they've won, essentially, and just to sit here and because, you know, the Democrats, it would be different if they even did politics well, but it's so obvious that they have no plans, they had no agenda, they had no contingencies for if the worst case happened on any of these things. They have no messaging, because again, they see that as an inconvenience. They see the democratic part of democracy as a massive inconvenience. They only care about the institutional parts, and so this is where we are. And that's the thing, is that, you know, it's going back to the thing I was saying earlier. The main thing that's breaking up the Democratic Party right now, it's not Israel versus Palestine. It's not Gaza. It's not if, you know, you're pro-Hamas or whatever. It is that so many people who make up the base of the Democratic Party, the true voter base, you know, the people that if you lose these people, then the Democrats get like 10%, 20% of the vote maximum. So many of them are from groups that don't have it so good, who want things to get better and are or, you know, they're very highly educated people, but you know, they have like this sense of humanitarianism. It's about humanitarianism. That was the traditional base of the Democratic Party. Don't sit there and let these centrist Democrat con men tell you that, oh, the traditional Democrats were these centrists. Go back and actually listen to what traditional Democrats had to say. You know, in 1936, 5 days, you know, 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly when, it was October 31st, I believe, in his Madison Square Garden speech, FDR sat up there and called out the industrialists, called out the big finance people, called out the people who, the part of the business plot and were part of this ultra conservative movement that was in the country at the time, and said that they are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred. That's a traditional Democrat. You ever listen to your grandparents, your great-grandparents? That is what they sounded like. The traditional Democrats were these basically conservatives. No, they were not. But it is that humanitarian impulse, that impulse to fight against what is and create something better. That is the old root of the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party has lost that. They now only wish to project their message. They only wish to be flattered by. They only wish to get the praise of people who want to sit at house parties and swirl their glasses of wine and talk about, what great progress they're making with their university grant or whatever. Like, that's the only people they care about these days. These people who think that the world would be such a better place if the unwashed masses would just get out of the goddamn way and let them do what they want to do. And that's why, and then they can't figure out why they're getting their fucking asses kicked in every election that's coming up. Sorry if you weren't expecting the hard F-bomb there, but I just, it is mesmerizing to me. They're so divorced from reality, but they run the damn party now. They run the party, we don't. There's no alternative for us. I mean, of course, there is an obvious alternative, which is to either vote for third party or what most people are going to do, which is just not vote. It's like these people never factor in that people can just not vote. They can just exercise their right to not accept your bullshit. They can do that. Have you thought of that? Have you? I'm talking directly to most Democrats, the Democratic electeds right now, and all those people who think that the entire purpose of government is just so that people can heap praise upon them. Have you thought about the fact that people can just not vote? They can drop out of the process. Because when I was coming up in 2000 and 2004, voter participation was abysmally low. Even in 2008, it was lower than it's been in the past two presidential election cycles. Voter participation was abysmally low, and the Democrats were getting rocked in every single election, basically. So, have you considered that people don't need to vote? Have you considered that your snide, manipulative, gaslighting bullshit might just cause people to not want to go to the polls? Have you thought about that? Have you thought maybe you should give people a reason to want to vote instead of trying to berate people into voting for you? Has that ever been a consideration? I'm sorry, I know I'm going off here, but it is... And so, I don't know what to do with this, but, it is... I mean, I know what I'm doing with this. I'm not recommending anything for anybody else. But, I do know that it's a disheartening situation that we're in right now. And I know that there are a few elected officials out there who are trying to do it right. I know some of those folks. Sadly, it's far fewer elected officials out there than I'd worked for who I thought were going to do it right. A number of whom came out and seemed like the most left-wing people, who seemed like the most populist and people-minded people. And a lot of them have completely turned their backs on that. But I do know that there are some folks out there who are trying to do it right, and I know that it's hard. It's hard every day to walk in. I'm not going to say who this was, but there's an elected official who I respect who lives around here, and I happened to be in an event that she was at, and some union folks came up to her and said, I really appreciate that you're the last Democrat who I hear speaking out for industrial workers, because I don't hear that anymore. And I think 3 years ago she would have said, "Oh no, we're always speaking out," but like she just got this resigned look on her face and said, "Yeah, didn't go into a big mea culpa, but she, with her body language and with the briefly saying yeah, and I go in every day with my Union Yes pin on and everything else like that." She like just accepting the fact that most Democrats are just completely divorced from regular people's problems these days. And this is not a, I always feel the need to reiterate that I will fight for folks who are part of a marginalized community, who have a marginalized identity. I don't like the way the Democratic Party does identity politics, but that is mostly because it's shallow and fake, and it's only about pleasing people who are within their inner circle. It's never about actually helping out the actual people who are affected. They would have so much more of a populist and popular and economically, they would be so much more for restructuring the who benefits from the economy and from society if they actually believed in this stuff wholeheartedly. Of course they don't. They are anti-progress. If they believed in helping these people out, because most people on the left who are there because of some sort of identity politics are not doing well economically or socially. They are not, the diversity hire of the month at Google or whatever. They are people who are working in coffee shops. They're people who can't get help from their parents because their parents threw them out of the house. That is what their situation is. And we never see those people get elevated in the conversation. It's always the people who went to the same colleges and the same universities and had the same professors and had the same opportunities, the same bosses, went to the same high school as the people who traditionally hold power in society. It's always those people. And in that case, well then, of course, you're gonna raise up people who had the lowest climb to get to where everybody else is. But I will always stick by and try to help folks who are at the bottom, so this isn't about like targeting that or saying that the Democratic Party does too many identity politics, but goddamn, man, like you guys have to figure out something new for all of us, for our ability to move into the future, because you're just losing it right now. You're losing everything. You're losing regular working folks. You're losing, and it's, the Democrats are still going to win, or they're still going to win the black community, but it's probably going to be the poorest showing they've had in a very long time. And again, all they can think to do is berate people and to try to vote for them. The Hispanic community, the Hispanic voters, Latino voters, they are probably almost going to go 50-50, which is a disaster. The last time we saw anything close to that happen was Bush in 2004, and that saved Bush's ass, essentially, in that election. And the split now between the Republicans have found a new split, and a lot of these folks who they're winning over still have one foot in the Democratic Party, but it's one foot only to corrupt the Democratic Party agenda. But they found a split in the LGBTQ community, amongst queer voters, amongst those who have the good education and are just who are only gay, only lesbian, only bisexual, and can mingle well in society. They have that clean image. I'm putting clean in massive quotation marks. Versus everybody, trans folks and queer folks and everything else like that. The conservatives have found that split, and they're even winning over large chunks of that community as well. And again, it's because there's never been any emphasis on fighting for just generally fighting for justice, for general humanitarianism. The Democrats have always given up on that fight. For as long as I have been alive, that has been the case. But certainly the last embers of that have been snuffed out in the last 10, 12 years. So, it's a disheartening situation. And I'm posting this on my channel because my channel is what I have. That's my outlet. Obviously, this isn't my usual content. Maybe I'll make a few more of these, though, from time to time, about things that are going on right now. I think this turned out to be more of a rambling thing that I had originally intended, because once I start talking, I go. Not because I like to hear the sound of my own voice, but because I'm very good at talking myself into a state of just the damn brakes, and there we go. I don't know what you call that exactly, but and it's just it's not, like I said, not my usual content, but I needed to let this out, and writing just didn't feel like the proper venue for it. If you're subscribed to my channel and you absolutely hated this, I'm sorry, but I needed to get it out, and I do hope that stuff like this will also help me get back on track, back towards recording again. Because this is, like I said, this is not going to be my normal thing from now on. This is just me getting this off of my chest and saying something that I had to put out there. But I'm hopefully going to get back to my more normal stuff here. But I'm going to cut off right there. 33 minutes of me just going off. Sorry, everybody, but I felt like I had to do this. So, I don't know what advice to give. I'm not going to tell anybody who they should vote for, or what you need to do, other than just be there for each other. Get involved in mutual aid. Try to build understanding with other folks, and because I don't foresee this getting much better anytime soon. There's just too much resistance to actually making the world a better place right now, and to giving people a good alternative instead of telling them, no, you must vote for the less bad one. So, all right, well, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.